Do you think you're being targeted by a narcissist? Is it love bombing or true love? That's what you're going to find out in this edition of Negotiate Your Best Life. Hi, I'm Rebecca Zung, and I have been recognized as one of the top attorneys in the country. And I have written a couple of best-selling books, Negotiate Like You Matter and Breaking Free, a step-by-step divorce guide. And I've helped millions of people go from lives of drama, trauma, and chaos to step into lives of freedom, possibility, and purpose. And that's what I do for you right here on this channel. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. So, in this edition of Negotiate Your Best Life, I am interviewing Mitzi Perdue. She was the heiress of the Sheraton hotel chain. She was married to the poultry guy, Frank Perdue, and she has certainly seen her share of narcissists. She's been involved with them. She was even engaged to one, married to one, not Frank Perdue. She wants to make sure everyone knows it wasn't Frank, somebody else. But she knows the ins and outs of being able to figure out, are you being love bombed or is it true love? Signs you're being targeted by a narcissist. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Mitzi Perdue. Welcome to another episode of Negotiate Your Best Life. I'm Rebecca Zung, and today's topic is, are you being love bombed or is it true love? Are you a target of a narcissist? And it is my very special honor to be here with Mitzi Perdue. She has graduated with honors from Harvard and has a master's from George Washington University, which I'm from DC, so very exciting. She's done lots and lots of incredible things, past president of 40,000 member American Agri-Women. She's a former syndicated columnist for Scripps Howard. Her column, The Environment and You, in the 90s was the most widely syndicated environmental column in the country. She's had a television series, Country Magazine. She owns a vineyard that sells grapes to all kinds of wineries like Mondavi and Kendall Jackson. She's the daughter of Ernest Henderson, who co-founded the Sheraton hotel chain. And she was married to Frank Perdue, who was the second generation poultry company that now operates in more than 50 countries. But more importantly for us, she has dealt with lots of narcissists and she knows how to spot them. So welcome, Mitzi.
Well, I love being on because, wow, isn't it astonishing how many bad guys or bad women there are out there who are after your money or your prestige or your scalp? I mean, it's just astonishing.
Yeah. So because of, how you grew up and who you were married to, you've had lots of experience with narcissists, right?
Well, there's a saying that I cherish because it's true, which is, a fool and her money are soon courted.
Yeah. Soon courted instead of parted.
Exactly.
So tell us about your experience with narcissists.
Well, my particular area of expertise is, I assume this would apply equally to a guy, but it certainly applied to me as a woman. When my late husband died, I have a cousin who said, do you realize since he had money, that there are probably 50 people combing through the obituaries right now trying to figure out how to get to you.
Ooh, that's
And
like such a creepy thought, isn't it?
yeah, the only thing is he was wrong. It wasn't 50, I bet it was thousands.
No way. So how
Yeah,
did that manifest? What did that look like?
people who just felt that we should be friends, or I could help you with this, or the variety of ways that somebody can try to enter your life, or somebody tells, I have an introduction from so and so. I mean, there are people who want free money who really work at it, and pretty often it's amazing. They can be so obvious it's just painful, or they can be extraordinarily good at it.
Yeah. So what makes them obvious? What are the signs
Obvious?
that we're making it obvious to you?
Well, the most obvious ever, there was this guy, he was a Nobel Prize winning physicist. I mean, so, he had a lot to offer. But doggone if, like the second date, he asked me what I was worth. And,
On the
you know,
second date?
yeah, and what normal person would ask that? I guess this guy was just unfiltered, but he knew what he wanted.
Did he
And
make it to a third date?
uh, yeah, I found him interesting to talk with, but the more I knew of him, the more the whole package fit. That this guy wasn't about me; it was about my money.
Yeah.
I mean, it was disappointing. Well, it's always disappointing, but it happened, and he was a typical narcissist. The world was all about him, and his absolute specialty was putting people down and attacking their self-worth and their self-image. I mean, he could not go through a day without interacting with 10 people and telling them that they're pronouncing a word wrong, or just things that would make people feel small.
Ah, the devaluing.
Yep.
We call that devaluing. After the love bomb stage, they start devaluing while they're love bombing sometimes, which is kind of confusing too.
All right, but then for cases where they're less obvious, I can think of a guy, age appropriate, incredibly handsome, pretty good physique. I mean, I'm 79, so at that point, he was probably 80.
Oh my
But
goodness. You
still,
look amazing, by the way. For those of you who are listening and not watching, wow. She
thank you,
looks incredible. I would have never guessed that.
thank you. Well, I'm proud of it. But back to Mr. Narcissist, who was really good at hiding it for a while.
Yeah, the covert.
Well, I mean, he had on paper, turned out they were all lies, but at least on paper on his website, that he was half owner of one of the world's largest banks, privately owned banks, graduate of Harvard Law School, Yale, Oxford. I mean, just all these credentials. And, and unfortunately, you've ever noticed that a really effective narcissist knows all the moves that can make a woman happy physically? I mean,
Oh, well, they're
specialize
really,
in
really
that, right?
good at reading
Yeah.
people. They are masters at reading people and knowing. So they are like chameleons. They become exactly what you want, you know?
Yeah, it was quite amazing. I'm ashamed of this, but we actually got engaged. However, the engagement, from my point of view, was over in 3 days. It was
So what
actually over.
happened? Tell us like what happened that made
There
you.
was something, there was a red flag that, I mean, if you find somebody really attractive and the sex is beyond your wildest imaginations, and it's pretty hard to face reality. But I have one thing that is so diagnostic that it transcends and it breaks through all the attraction. And that is, I noticed in his apartment, there were a whole lot of unpaid bills.
Mm.
And actually, to this day, I'm pretty sure he could have afforded to pay the bills. But I realized that, I mean, he just said, oh, it's just not that important. But I'm thinking, hey, there are people, there are vendors who aren't going to be able to pay their vendors if you don't pay your bills. And just the kind of the hard-heartedness of not having any awareness that your actions are causing pain to others. Or actually, eventually I came to believe that he even liked playing that game, because there are all these people, calling, I'm frantic. I'm going to, I have to pay my bills. Please pay this bill. And I thought, here's my thinking on this. We go through life, if we're normal and sane and worth getting along with, we have reciprocal obligations. And one of the reciprocal obligations is if I take your $20,000 couch for my house, my obligation is to pay you for this thing. It's not to keep you waiting for 3 months. And I thought the lack of conscientiousness, the lack of empathy, the lack of responsibility made me think, you off my island.
Yeah. So did he mistreat you as well?
I don't think he would have even tried because I would have killed him.
Ah,
I mean, I think I give off signals, don't do that.
okay. Okay. So, um,
And by the way, I'm a
interesting.
fairly big believer in giving off those signals because, my own attitude towards myself is I'm a nice guy, but don't mess with me.
Yeah. So how do you do that? What's the don't mess with me? I know a lot of my, the people who are watching or listening, they're feeling powerless. They're feeling, like, the people have been mistreating them, devaluing them, gaslighting them.
So I'm a big believer in self-talk. Uh, like, I think that I'm almost incapable of telling myself that I'm powerful. My self-talk is, you even try to lift a hand against me, I'm, I'm going to cause you problems. I mean, I'm not here to be a victim. I'm just not. I'll never voluntarily, knowingly cause you harm, but don't mess with me. By the
Yeah.
way, and I think he sensed that because, I mean, he was clearly after my money. It was the most obvious thing in the world in retrospect. I learned later that there was a woman whom I got to know fairly well. He owed her $250,000, never paid it back. And
Mm.
when she said, I'm going to take you to court, he said, I downloaded your electronic Rolodex, and I'm going to send out emails to a couple of thousand people telling what a horrible person you are, and you'll never get married, and you'll never work again. That's what I'll do to you if you try to take me to court over the money I owe you.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's good, to be tough like that, of course, but, not
By
everybody
the way,
thinks
she did
that
take
way.
him to jail, and he ended up spending. Oh, he lied to the court, and he ended up spending. I think he was sentenced to like a month in jail for misleading the court.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's such bad guys around, but they don't look like it necessarily. I mean, some do, but Mr. X, the guy that I've just been describing, uh,
Sounds like
he,
he was a covert narcissist, which I call a wolf in sheep's clothing.
yeah, I mean, to look at him, you just wouldn't guess he had the sweetest smile, uh,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I
They can be
I
very
think he
charismatic.
sized me up that I wasn't a good person to mess with physically. Uh, and we didn't even get to the part where he was seriously mistreating me because I had stopped being under his spell the moment I realized that this is somebody who doesn't pay his bills. And to me, that I don't know what for individual people, what the line that you can't cross is, but that's mine. This is a bad person if he doesn't pay his bills, and I'm not going to trust anything else he says or does. And it was so right because I mentioned all these wonderful degrees that he claimed to have. Fake.
Oh, really? Fake? How did you find out they were fake?
Because eventually I met his first wife, uh, and he had kept her tied up in court for almost 15 years. I mean, she
Ah,
wanted to get out of this,
very
but
typical of a narcissist. They love to drag out court actions.
yeah, I mean, they'd come to an agreement and they'd be about to sign it, she told me, and then he'd find some other thing to, like he was
Yeah.
what you
I
lawyers
call
are
that
going,
moving the goalposts, which is
yeah,
a very typical thing. And that's one of the things I teach in my negotiation classes, actually, that they do. They like to move the goalposts because they get narcissistic supply from that.
yeah, it's, I think for a decent person, it's really hard to grasp that there are really bad people out there. And I hope there aren't a lot of them, but if you have something to offer, whether it's money or prestige or sex or a place to stay or whatever, there are people who want free stuff and you're going to be a target. And you want to believe that they're being honest, but how about, no, they're bad people. They want your stuff. And just because you can't imagine that somebody would be that bad. Uh, they are.
Yeah, so true. So you talk about your spidey sense. Tell me about that.
There's a, I read a book once that said, this was by somebody who, I guess he was ex-FBI. He said that almost every woman who had been raped or mauled in one way or another had had a spidey sense before it happened. Yeah, the kind of thing that says, get out of this. And he said, the trouble is we've been socialized not to listen to it. You know, we don't want to sound prejudiced. We don't want to sound judgmental. He said, save your life, listen to your spidey sense. So for me, the spidey sense is listen when somebody says, well, some inner voice says, this is too good to be true. Uh, this situation is making me uncomfortable. And I don't think it, well, actually, at this point in my life, at 79, I'm really ready to own the notion that if my spidey sense tells me that this isn't right, it's not that I'm prejudiced, it's not that I'm judgmental, it's that, how about I'm probably right and I'll listen to it and I will act on it. You off my island.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely felt it in my gut too. There's just things that are off about people sometimes, where you just know that that doesn't seem right or that little thing seems like,
I'll pay attention to it.
yeah. Yeah. And you talk about looking at how they act in daily life. Tell me more
Well,
about.
there's a phrase that I really like, and it goes like this: how you act in one thing is how you act in everything. And yeah, you can disguise it a little bit, but generally, like the guy whom I mentioned who wouldn't pay his bills on time, I learned that that was just his general attitude towards life. Make people squirm by not paying them. Uh, how you act in one thing, like I was just so interested in watching how this guy treated cab drivers, or like a repair person at Apple. You know, he was dismissive, he'd just find ways to make them sound incompetent and as if they weren't speaking English. I mean, he found ways to make people uncomfortable. And I'm thinking, you know, if he does that to other people, he's on his good behavior with me right now. But I wouldn't trust for a second that at some point later on, this is how he's going to be treating me.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. I like that. And you also say lying is a deal breaker. Talk more about that.
Okay, I can deal with minor stretching the truth, like, oh, you look beautiful today. I can deal with that. But a real serious lie, uh, again, how you act in one way is how you act in everything. If the person has a fragile relationship with the truth, I'm not ready to believe other things that they say. So for me, you know, if I'm dating a guy and I find a real serious lie, like I went to Yale and I didn't go to Yale, no, I have no patience for that. Decent people, the kind of people I want to hang out with, tell the truth.
Yeah, I always love the Maya Angelou quote where she said, when people tell you who they are, show you who they are, believe them the first time.
Yeah. And, you know, on the issue of truth, I totally endorse a Chinese saying, which is that there are two situations in which lying is appropriate and forgivable. Number one, to save a life. Number two, to flatter a woman. Okay, but
Well,
short of that,
I'm half Chinese, so maybe you're just
oh,
saying
really?
this just to flatter me. Yeah. Yeah, my dad's Chinese.
Oh, well, the nicest guy I've dated since my husband died in 2005 uh, was totally Chinese. I mean, I'd visit him in China for a couple of weeks each year.
Nice.
Alas, he's gone to his great reward, so that's not
Uh,
going on anymore. But
yeah.
I adored him, and he was just everything good.
So, and you also say that when someone tells you how trustworthy they are, That's
Run for the hills. Run for the hills.
so tell us more about that.
Okay, I've discovered over and over again, and I'm going to pull rank now by saying that I'm 79, but I've observed this over and over again. People don't have to tell you their great qualities, and I'll give you an example. I don't think a Rockefeller stands up and tells you, boy, am I ever rich. And I'm pretty sure Einstein didn't say, gee, I'm smart. And an honest person doesn't have to say, boy, am I ever trustworthy. You just don't have to. It's to me a great big red flag, the person who says you can trust me.
Yeah, I agree.
And I
like
also
that
think
one.
trust is the most important ingredient in a relationship. If you don't have that, you've got nothing. You've
Yeah.
got nothing to build on, nothing to,
Yeah, it's no foundation.
no foundation.
Yeah, I agree. Here's one that I really like where you say to look for how often do they make excuses?
Yeah, because, over and over again, notice how often people make excuses for being late or maybe giving a mingy tip or, just some kind of bad behavior. And, I'm perfectly willing to accept once, gee, I was overdrawn at the bank and that's why the check bounced. I think that could happen to anybody. I'd accept that. Not happily, and I'd keep my eyes wide open for the future. But one time, yeah, one excuse, that works. Two, in the great balance of things, I think the second excuse weighs a feather. I mean, I'm not going to count it. Or let me put it differently. I'm not going to value it. And the third excuse, I like to say it weighs in the great big balance where truth is an elephant. This is a cockroach. Excuses, yeah, the first time, maybe. The second time, probably not. And the third time, you off my island. I have less patience as I get older because the good outcomes for the people that you're patient with are rare.
Yeah, totally. I agree. They're not going to change, right? I mean, if they show you,
Totally, absolutely, completely, and not. And if they
Yeah.
say they're changing, don't believe them
Don't
because they're liars at heart.
yeah, I agree. So, another
And
one,
may I interrupt with a thought on that?
sure,
Excuse me, because I've just been rude, but
not at all.
thank you. But I'm thinking on the question of not having patience and do they change? They just don't change, and you're better off maybe 100-fold being alone than being with somebody who makes you miserable.
Ugh, isn't that the truth? I
Well,
know
it's
that.
so the truth because I mean, you can go out with friends, you can watch movies, you can, your life is your own. Your energy isn't being sapped and bled dry by somebody who's an emotional vampire. So I understand that when you've been with somebody for a while, and maybe he's been devaluating you and making you feel that you're not worthy to walk on the face of this earth. You have so little reserves left to fight with. But guess what? You got to fight. You got to get out of it. You have got to get out of it because it's not going to get better ever. It will only get worse. And so tell yourself, like almost as a mantra, staying with him or her, it will get worse. I'm better off alone. And then once you're alone, you have a chance of meeting somebody new.
It's definitely true. I had the same thought in my first marriage. I mean, my first husband was a good guy. There was nothing really wrong with him, but we really weren't suited for each other. And I remember saying to myself, I'd rather, be actually alone because otherwise I'm in this marriage and I'm alone, but I'm resentful because I'm alone, but you're here, so I'd rather actually be alone. Then I'm alone, but I'm not resentful. So I totally get that. So another sign that you have is pay close attention to their relationship with others. I think that's a really good one too. Tell us more about that.
Ideally, and I know the world isn't ideal, but ideally, get to know some of not just one or two friends, because it's possible for a bad guy to have wingmen, but it'd be really nice to know his family, to know his childhood friends, just to know as many people as possible. Because the more people you know that know him, the
Or
harder it's
her.
going to be, or her. Let's stipulate that when I say her, because, well, when I say him, it could be her. When I say her, it
Yeah.
could be him.
Perfect. Perfect.
Because we both know that it both happens.
Yes.
Uh, so we were talking about how you get to, how you protect yourself from these people. And so often the really bad guys, they sort of blow in from nowhere. Maybe they say that they have a CIA job and you can't meet their friends, or, you know, if they have ways of keeping you from knowing where they came from and who their friends are, yeah, that's a great big red flag too. And I suppose there are people who are CIA people and can't tell you about their background. But excuses like that are such an ideal cover. I'm as skeptical as a human being can be when somebody tells me something like that.
Yeah, I know. I think that's good. I mean, as you say, look at their long-term relationships. Do they have them? Look at their relationships with their family. Look at their relationships with people in their professional life. I think that that makes a lot of sense. And another one that you have is if you're an extra nice person, be extra on guard. I
Yeah,
like that too.
I want to share things that I've learned in my 79 years. And one of them, it's not my idea. It goes back, I think, 2,300 years ago to I think maybe it was Plato, maybe it was Socrates. I think it was Cicero. But anyway, one of the great philosophers said, it's as hard for a good person to think ill of a bad person as it is for a bad person to think good of a good person. And, kind of translated into modern language, what it means is if you're just kind and good, it's just so hard to wrap your mind around the idea that there's somebody who wants you to suffer. It's so foreign to you, you can't wrap your mind around it. And the kinder you are, the more forgiving, the more understanding, the more vulnerable you are. And as a matter of fact, in my experience of looking around the world, and this is a topic that fascinates me, and that is the subject of narcissists, the more I look around the world, the more convinced I am that the narcissist is going to pick out the person who's kind and good and understanding and forgiving. I mean, that's a
Absolutely.
perfect target. So if I'm addressing your audience, I'd say, don't change. I mean, continue being a nice, good, decent, forgiving person, but be aware that they're not all like you, that there are people who mean you harm, who would just absolutely love to see you in tears.
And don't feel bad that you fell for one, right?
Uh, well, since in my life I have, uh, I'll, I've had two marriages, one which was ghastly and one which was heavenly. In the ghastly one, well, I sure fell for the person. And he was actually an ex-priest. He had left the priesthood. And I thought, since I was an heiress of the Sheraton hotels, I'd always been scared of fortune hunters. And this ex-priest came into my life and I thought, he with a vow of poverty and isn't a materialistic person and is spiritual, I could trust that person. Wrong.
And
He,
how
he
old were
was
you? How old were you with your first marriage?
old enough to know better, 28,
Oh, okay.
but
Okay.
he was the perfect example of a narcissist. Perfect.
Yeah. So Frank Purdue was a good guy, it sounds like.
Frank was as opposite from my first husband as a human being could be. He was endlessly thoughtful and considerate and kind and
Oh,
just good to be around.
so nice to know. so nice to know because we all know him. Well, at least I do. Those of us who are old enough to remember him on the commercials and, his
Well,
persona.
I'll tell you something. He was just like the commercials. He was self-deprecating. He had a wry sense of humor. I used to feel that I would walk around the house with a smile on my face because I knew that just out of the blue he'd be saying something that would have me laughing or clutching my sides or maybe rolling on the floor with laughter because he was just funny. By the
Uh,
way, have you noticed? I wonder if you have the experience or if it's just mine, but the narcissists that I've known well, they don't really have a good sense of humor. Have you discovered that?
yeah, I mean, I think certain ones probably do, but not about themselves. They're certainly not self-deprecating. That's not new. But maybe at other people's expense, they have a great sense of
If there's a twist of
cruelty or something.
yeah, then they're really good on
Right.
humor. But I'm thinking
Exactly.
of the kind of thing where you just joyously laugh, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure how much joy I've seen in the narcissists
Oh,
I've
they
known.
probably zero. I mean, they have no inner sense of self. So
Yeah, I used to compare that with my first husband. We'll call him Dr. X. That Dr. X, there was no way of finding out where there was. There was just an endless series of facades of presenting himself as being brilliant and kind and all the stuff that of how he wanted to appear. But underneath, I felt there was nothing.
oh,
On the other hand, with Frank Perdue, his personality was so solid that I thought that I'm going to use a metaphor here, but imagine that you're brailing Michelangelo's David. Can you picture that marble statue of a really handsome Greek god-looking guy in
yeah.
marble? That if you had your eyes closed and you felt that marble statue, there's something there, and you get the feeling. But I felt with Dr. X that if I were kind of closing my eyes and brailing what his personality was about, it would be like a sagging balloon. It was
Yeah.
there's
I
just
call
nothing
them the
solid there.
I call them the hollow chocolate Easter bunny. They look good on the outside, but there's
Yeah.
nothing inside. Yeah. So you wanted to share something about your pet, your passion. So tell us
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. How I intend to spend the remaining days of my life, and I hope there are many. I want to combat human trafficking because it's, to my mind, it's just one of the worst atrocities in the world. But it also seems to me that a lot of the personality of a trafficker is is a narcissist or is a close cousin, because yeah, most let's take women, but it could apply to men. Most women who get into being trafficked, it's not that somebody chloroformed them and dragged them away in a truck. No, it's more likely that you get boyfriended into it. You meet somebody who just love bombs you to the ultimate, and you're expecting to have a life together, but then he's got some financial problems, and oh, please help out, and we'll have our future together. Do some things for me, and that involves sleeping with his best friend, and he loves you to death for it. But then pretty soon there are more financial problems, and eventually Romeo Pimp turns into Gorilla Pimp, and he says, if you don't do these things, I'm going to kill your baby brother. I know where he lives.
Mm,
Uh,
God.
but isn't that the same sort of like seduction that,
Of course. They
okay,
prey. I mean, all narcissists are predators.
yeah, but these people just happen to, to my mind, it's worse. Well, I'm involved in an anti-trafficking organization. It's called Win This Fight. And if you want to go to it, it's winthisfight.org. But in here in January, it's National Trafficking Awareness Month. And I want to invite absolutely everybody to be part of something fun, but that will really contribute to anti-trafficking efforts. And for those who can't see, I am putting on a red bandana. And can you picture Rosie the Riveter, the World War II woman who got out of the home and went to work in the factories and changed the course of Western civilization by helping us defeat Nazism? Well, I and the people I'm working with We want to have an equivalent of Rosie the Riveter, but in this case, it's going to be Rosie the Liberator. We want you to put on a scarf of some sort and strike a Rosie the Riveter pose, which looks something like this. And for those who are listening, I've got a red bandana on, a really fetching grin, and I'm making a fist. The Rosie the Liberator, we want you to take images of that. We've already got hundreds of them. Actually, it's probably thousands. We want you to post it in Facebook along with the hashtag #WinThisFight. But more important, would like you to find an anti-trafficking organization of your choice and make a $5 contribution. Because one of the things that anti-trafficking organizations really need is they need visibility and they need cash. And if you don't have an anti-trafficking organization that you already care about, but I hope you do care about, because like there are 1 million children who are being sex trafficked, forced to have sex with strangers 10, 12 times a night, 365 days a year. There are 42 million people in slavery. If you'll join this Rosie the Liberator challenge, come to winthisfight.org and upload a picture. And if you choose to donate, that would be fabulous. If you choose to write an essay, I mean, this is all optional, but of why this is important to you, we're having, it's going to be like a contest, and there's no prizes to the contest other than the satisfaction of maybe you had the funniest pose, maybe you had the most original, maybe you had the most artistic. I know right now of graphic artists who are interpreting this, you know, some like modern art, some very realistically. Upload your picture, upload it to winthisfight.org, and I'll publish it, and would just love to have you, because human trafficking, I do think, is the worst scourge on the face of the earth. It's narcissists gone to the nth degree, and let's help stop this.
I think that is absolutely incredible. And everybody listening, go to winthisfight.org, post your picture, donate your $5, and let's win this fight. So that's amazing. Is there anything else you want to share about what you're up to, how they can find you?
Well, yes, if they go to winthisfight.org and they want to get more involved, we have, how about hundreds of different jobs that need to be done? And I make a promise to everybody who volunteers, and there are about 400 now, that I will find work that fits what you want to do, fits your talent stack, and I will never ask you for 1 penny or 1 minute of money or time that you don't actively want to do. I mean, it'll be the ride of your life, and you're going to feel good at the end of it, because you'll have done something to help prevent some of the worst misery that exists on this planet.
I agree. Thank you so much, Mitzi Perdue. What amazing pearls of wisdom. So people can tell if they are being targeted by a narcissist, and how to get them out of their lives or avoid them. So I really, really appreciate you joining us today.
It's been a joy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me in this edition of Negotiate Your Best Life. How interesting is she? She sure does know how to tell if you're being targeted by a narcissist. If you like this video, give it a like, share it, drop me a comment. Let me know what you learned from this video. What did Mitzi teach you? And what revelations did you have? Drop me a comment and let me know. And make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. Also, feel free to join me in my free private Facebook group, which is Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. And also feel free to grab my free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet. You can just get that at winmynegotiation.com. So thanks for joining me on this edition of Negotiate Your Best Life. Remember, today is a great day to start negotiating your best life, and I'll see you in the next video.